Pederasty and the Group, Examining Assumptions via the Broad Perspective. In our society, pederasty is not simply considered pathological in the case of the adult actor and damaging in the case of the youth involved, but harmful to society as well. A frequent claim included within media commentaries, for example, is that no society that permits this behavior can survive. Given this thinking, it is noteworthy that many of the cultures listed in Table 3 held diametrically opposite views and lasted for centuries or even millennia. Many of them considered pederasty necessary for their boys to develop properly so as to enable their culture to function adequately. This section reviews pederastic functioning according to accounts by historians, anthropologists, and the societies themselves, and then reconsiders our society's view of intrinsic malfunction, not just at the individual but also the group level. Sexual victimologists and others have compared adult minor sex, including pederasty, to slavery, and when they have considered societies such as ancient Greece, they have dismissed claims of pederasty's social role there, arguing that these societies had slavery too. Slavery can be described in many ways, but for present purposes, what is relevant is that it retards or prevents another's development and realization of potential by forcing him or her to sacrifice effort that instead advances the slaveholder's interests. In ancient Greece, pederasty was institutionalized among the elite in order to advance, not hinder, elite boys' development, so as to recreate adult male citizens who functioned well according to the society's needs. Hubbard, 1998, Lear, 2004, Rice, 2005. That is, the social custom was viewed as functional at the level of the adult male lover, erastes, the beloved youth, eromenos, and society. The erastes had a dedicated apprentice. The eromenos learned manly skills and virtues. The society as a whole had a stronger citizenry. In the warrior culture of early Greece, manly skills, e.g. martial, and virtues, e.g. courage, loyalty, self-sacrifice, were needed, and one-on-one mentoring with its emotional connection was an efficient means of transmitting these characteristics. Neal, 2009. The slavery analogy is a projection of current dominant ideologies and obfuscates the actual character of pederasty in ancient Greece and many other cultures, across time and place. That is, societal benefit owing to building, not thwarting youths. It is relevant to add that this social custom in ancient Greece came as a package involving beauty, desire, sexual excitement, and pedagogy. Boyish beauty was thematically valorized in vase paintings, with the inscription kalos, beautiful, frequently inscribed. Lear and Cantarella, 2008. In philosophy, Plato's Phaedrus held boyish beauty to be that which most closely resembled the form of beauty, i.e., the ideal of beauty in high heaven. Numerous Greek poets from the 7th century BCE to the triumph of Christianity in the 4th century CE wrote of the bewitching power that boys' beauty held over them or other men. Hubbard, 2003, Lear, 2004. A leitmotif from the Archaic period, before 480 BCE, which was imitated repeatedly in later times, was the power of a beautiful boy's eyes, which were said to induce a state of helplessness in the adult male admirer. Hubbard, 2002. The point is, as with earlier discussion on beauty, that Greek pederasty was driven by a genuine erotic energy tapped for the benefit of the social group, not the neurotic energy of satisfying personal power needs in opposition to the group's well-being. Cf. Hubbard, 2000, Paglia, 1990. In medieval and pre-modern Japan, pederasty was also institutionalized for its social utility. Loip, 1995. By the 13th century, it was prevalent in Buddhist monasteries. Boys from ranking families entered around age 10 to train for the clergy or to learn scripture, and by their early teens may have formed a pederastic relationship with a monk, serving as his acolyte. The relationship was acceptable in the culture, being understood as facilitating the pedagogic process, and thus serving to maintain the institution. It was eventually formalized in a, quote, brotherhood bond resembling man-boy marriages in many other pederastic societies. See Table 3. Monastic pederasty influenced the development and institutionalization of feudal pederasty practiced by samurai warriors. Feudalism developed by the 12th century when centralized state institutions collapsed. Rule was then organized in a hierarchical military class made up of lords and samurai warriors who exchanged service for land. By the late 16th century, the samurai population had reached the hundreds of thousands. The practice of pederasty was pervasive among them and was recognized to serve the mentoring function of transmitting martial skills and virtues to the youths, to aid the warriors by giving them devoted apprentices, and ultimately to maintain the functioning of the ruling order and thus the social whole. A revealing view into the nature of pre-modern Japanese pederasty comes from the writings of Saikaku, one of the world's literary giants who first achieved national recognition with his 1687 book on Shudo, i.e. pederasty, entitled The Great Mirror of Male Love, with subtitle The Custom of Boy Love in Our Land, Shallow, 1989. His book became an instant success, owing to the contemporary popularity of pederasty as well as his novel approach. He combined the three main forms of pederasty, monastic, samurai, and kabuki, into a single prose work. His 40 short stories reflect and reveal the ideals of pederasty as viewed in his day. Pederasty involved mutual emotional exchange between man and boy, embodying ikiji, shared masculine pride, an element not obtainable from male-female relations. A youth was deemed worthy of the love of a man if he possessed nasake, a form of empathy that involved emotional sensitivity to the suffering of a potential lover, as well as the desire to relieve that suffering. In the case of the samurai, the man was expected to give social backing to the youth and to provide a model of manliness. In exchange, the youth was expected to be a good student of samurai manhood, which meant vowing to be loyal, steadfast, and honorable in his actions. Both were expected to sacrifice for the other, even the ultimate sacrifice of life if honor required it. Shallow, 1989, Saikaku, 1990. This practice is unimaginable to our society, where pederasty is conceived of only in terms of exploitation and harm. But in pre-modern Japan, with its very different social structure, pederastic relations were an efficient means, owing to their intimate nature, of transmitting culturally needed masculine skills and emotional readiness to the next generation in service of the wider society. C.F. Neal, 2009. In most pre-literate cultures in Table 3, pederasty was also institutionalized for its mentoring value. In the anthropological literature, these cultures are referred to as mentorship societies, in recognition of the social function that pederasty was serving for them. Grappo, 1995. The form of mentorships could be one-on-one, mentor-apprentice arrangements of the type in ancient Greece, or communal arrangements as in many of the Melanesian societies. Adam, 1985. In Table 3, examples of the ancient Greek one-on-one form were the Azande warriors of the northern Congo, the Marind Anim of New Guinea, the Aranda of Australia, and the Koirunas Indians of Brazil. Examples of the Melanesian communal form were the Sambia, Gebusi, and Keraki of New Guinea. In this latter form, boys would interact sexually with many older males, taking in their semen orally or anally, with the belief being that the semen grew the boys, without which they would not mature. Hurt, 1987, 1993. In these societies, pederasty was one of a number of cultural rituals involved in transforming boys into cultural producers of socially needed activities, particularly warfare, by instilling in them the skills, emotional readiness, e.g. courage, and group orientation, e.g. loyalty, sacrifice, required for these activities. It was a mechanism for reproducing the male group. so vital to the way of life in these societies. Hurt 1987, 1991, 1993, 1997, and Keesing 1982. In our society today, the male group is far less present or important compared with the societies just discussed. One key reason why is unprecedented advances in technology, which have enabled women to take on many jobs or tasks that traditionally only men could do. But in the low-tech environs before the modern age, only males could undertake war and big game hunting. Gatt 2006, Gilmore 1990. As Gatt argued, war was often not a choice, but a necessity throughout our species' existence, as enemy tribes posed a constant threat to invade at night and kill everyone. This pattern of warfare has been ubiquitous among extant and historical hunter-gatherer and primitive horticulturalist societies, and inferentially can be assumed to extend throughout prehistory. Warrior responsibilities and big game hunting necessarily fell on males, being twice as physically strong as females on average, such that in low-tech environs, females could not have competed with male enemies. Because of this, in past low-tech societies where warfare or big game hunting were priorities, the male group was also a priority, as was its maintenance, which behooved adult males to recruit and train boys continually. Mackey, 1990, Weisfeld, 1979, Weisfeld and Billings, 1988. It was in such environs that pederasty was one of the mechanisms to facilitate boys' enculturation to maintain the male group, as the historical and cross-cultural review just presented shows. Later, it will be considered whether pederasty was a naturally selected mechanism designed to serve this function, cf. Mackey, 1990. In short, pederasty is pervasively portrayed in our society as intrinsically disordered in the case of the man, harmful in the case of the boy, and destructive in the case of society. The historical and cross-cultural review just presented adds much weight to the previous non-clinical empirical review in undermining these assumptions. Moreover, the present review supports the radically, from our society's point of view, different conceptualization of pederasty, already suggested in some of the non-clinical empirical data and in the case studies of Lambert and Kohut presented previously, that it can be functional at both the individual and group levels rather than necessarily dysfunctional. Importantly, function, culture, and environment interact, which is considered in greater detail next.